Welcome to the world of real entertainment. You are about to experience Wild in Hollywood, the third volume of All the King's Men, a revealing look into the private life of Elvis Presley. Watch for the release of future tapes in this exciting series, coming soon on home video. Stay tuned for an exclusive preview following the show. The world remembers Elvis Presley as the king of rock and roll, but he was much more to 5 loyal friends. Cousin Billy Smith, teenage companions Lamar Fike, Marty Lacker, Red West, and Red's cousin Sonny West. Because of their fierce devotion to Elvis, the 5 became known as the Memphis Mafia. Closer than brothers, they served Elvis as trusted confidants, court jesters, and tireless protectors. Join them now for the provocative, hilarious, moving, and endlessly fascinating tales of All the King's Men. Here for the first time on video. November 16, 1956. Outside Manhattan's Paramount Theater, a team of New York's finest struggles to impose order on a frenzied crowd. They barely contain Elvis Presley's legion of teenage fans, giddy with anticipation at the premiere of their idol's first motion picture. Love Me Tender quickly becomes a smash hit. The movie stars Hollywood favorites Deborah Paget and Richard Egan, but it is Elvis who really generates the big box office dollars.
Say you want your lover. Say you ain't laid awake every night by my side thinking of him. Wishing I was Vance. Wishing you'd waited for him and never married me.
The film introduces new songs that become instant winners on the pop charts. Elvis sees his big screen debut as a personal triumph.
Elvis was a big movie buff even back, before he became famous, and to get a chance to star in a movie, and with stars too, he was quite thrilled with it.
Co-star Deborah Paget thrilled Elvis even more, at least in his hopes.
Even back then, he liked to get acquainted with his, co-stars and all. At that time, which he was a co-star, but and he wanted to, get something going, and she just wouldn't really have that much to do. She liked him.
Her mother was there all the time.
Yeah, and she liked him and all, but she just didn't want to go that route. So.
Well, yeah, that was one of the problems with Deborah. Another thing why she wouldn't go out with him is because Howard Hughes had her under contract.
That's exactly
and
right.
She didn't want to blow it.
We went over to Deborah Paget's house, and I looked out, and this black Chevrolet would keep circling the house, and I asked Elvis. I said, "Do you know what that car was?" And he said, "No." I said, and I asked Deborah. I said, "Could you ask me a question?" I said, "This car keeps circling." She was probably Hughes has been watching me. He had, he really got uptight about that, and I think the word went out that that we shouldn't go over there anymore, and we kind of stayed away from then on out.
Elvis's second picture, Loving You, echoes his real-life story as a rising star.
It's not my future you care about, it's yours. It's what I can do for you. You don't care about me or Tex or anybody, just yourself.
You've got 15 minutes to get on that stage and find out if you've even got a future.
Jailhouse Rock assures Elvis's future in the movies. His third film soars to the top 5 at the box office.
How dare you think such cheap tactics would work with me?
Ain't tactics, honey. That's just the beast in me.
Made in 1957, it remains a classic for rock and roll and Elvis.
Back then, he was so hot that every star wanted to meet him. It was an interesting picture because all the stars were still there at MGM. Clark Gable and Burt Lancaster, Robert Taylor, John Cassavetes. I mean, they were all there, and if you really were around some other star, he didn't like it.
When you're around him, you don't realize these other people
that are attracted to him.
That are attracted to him also.
Hey, the Durango Kid walked on the set one time. I went crazy. And Elvis was the same way about those old cowboy stars, And I ran a dressing room, and I slammed the door. He said, "What are you doing?" I said, "Listen to me. you know who's out there? He said, I said, Glenn Strange, Bob Steele, Durango Kid. He said, are you serious? I said, I'm telling you, they're out there right now. He said, no, no, no. I said, listen to me. When you go out there, act normal. I said, do not get carried away. I said, look to your left and you will see him. He said, well, where are they? I said, to your left. When you go out the door, look to your left. I said, don't act like you see him. So he got up and we walked out and he turned around and said, holy shit, they're there. I said, yeah. And we went over and we held up production for almost 2 hours talking to him about all these old movies and stuff we'd seen. And they couldn't believe it because he was so wrapped up in seeing them because he paid a dime, 12 cents like all of us to see him.
Like you say, you see all these people that you've been watching in movies, and then you're standing next to them, like Charlton Heston. Elvis called him Cowboy Moses because he did a Western and he played Moses.
Right.
And I was actually in his house and I saw his Oscars and I saw the staff they have. But you start meeting these people and it's you can't explain it.
You turn the corner and run into Robert Taylor or Glenn Ford, which was really disconcerting for us because you grew up thinking their heads were bigger than a car, you know?
That was amazing. That's what you're going to see talking to these guys. I mean, it's a different world out there.
One day we had broken for lunch and knocked on the door, and I went and asked the door, it was Glenn Ford, and I opened the door up and there stood Glenn Ford. Well, I slammed the door in his face. Elvis said, what is that? I said, it's Glenn Ford. I said, I don't know what to do. He said, what do you mean, talk to him? I said, he's standing outside the door. You don't understand that. And he said, listen, will you open the door up? I said, no, you open the door. I was so rattled because I grew up watching all of these people and I didn't know what to do.
Another thing back then, too, Robert Mitchum offered Elvis the lead in Thunder Road.
His son played the part.
Turned down. No, Robert played the part. Robert Mitchum played the part he wanted Elvis to play.
Well, what happened was we were staying at the Beverly Wilshire, and I walked down. There's a knock on the door. I mean, just boom, boom, boom. And I opened the door up, and there stood Bob Mitchum. Well, once again, you know, the panic set in. You know, I said, "What can I do for you, Mr. Mitchum?" He said, and just walked right by me. He had a bottle of scotch in his hand, and he said, "I want to see Elvis." I said, "You can't see him." He said, "Why can't I?" And I said, it's a good question, you know. I walked down the hall ahead of him just as fast as I could. I walked into Elvis's bedroom. I said, listen to me. He said, what is it? I said, just act, you know, just be cool about this. I said, Robert Mitchum's house. I said, get back. I said, I'm telling you that Robert Mitchum is sitting in the living room with a bottle of scotch in front of him, and he's got a script in his hand. Now, what are you going to do about it? He said, I guess we're going to go out there, you know. And that's when Mitchum said, you know, you need to play this part in the picture. I said, well, I'm committed to 3 more pictures. I can't.
I watch a lot of old movies on TV, and you look at a young Marlon Brando and a young Paul Newman and a young Elvis Presley, and they all have the same facial look about them, and their eyes are almost the same, and the nose.
He found out years later how Tony Franciosa, Jack Lord, Paul Newman, all of them, McQueen, all of them up there was talking about Elvis Presley. They were up there doing Broadway and everything, doing plays, and they were all talking about Elvis and what a phenomenal talent that was.
Then he went and did King Creole.
You're a pretty fancy performer, ain't you, kid?
Now you know what I do for an encore.
The best acting he had ever done, and everybody that I've heard, directors, producers, other actors, have always said if they would have allowed him to continue in that same vein, that he would have been one of the best actors, you know, on par with, they say on par with people like Brando and James Dean. And
King Creole, wasn't that written for James Dean? And
Stone for Danny Fisher.
Stone for Danny Fisher.
Yeah. Harold Robbins' book. You can see how James Dean would have been playing that part, and Elvis did a terrific job. That was my favorite movie that he ever made. I just love that movie.
Yeah, Vic Morrow.
Yeah.
Walter just when I met him.
Jones.
I was home.
And the award-winning director, what was his name? The German guy?
Yeah.
Michael Curtiz.
Yeah, Michael Curtiz.
Yeah. He was trying, like Elvis said, he said, I realized that the movies were a lot like, you know, being on stage, just be myself, and I would come out better. And you could see the difference in Love Me Tender and Loving You.
In March of 1958, Uncle Sam casts Elvis in the role of a soldier, but allows him to finish King Creole before his Army induction.
He was drafted before the making of King Creole.
Got a deferment.
He got on the phone, he called the colonel, and they started this whole deferment process because he was already locked contractually into the picture, and he got, like, what was it, a 60 or 90-day deferment.
All the time he was over there, there was no new records. Colonel even wanted him to try to record something over there, and he's on a tape record, anything. And no way, no way. And he was worried about his career was over. Fabian at the time had come on, you know, remember Fabian? In fact, Dick Clark had called over there to interview him and whatever. But he was really worried about his career. He thought, that's it, boys, it's over.
What happened really in the long term is that his 24 months in the Army really saved Elvis's career. I mean, it really made him that much stronger as far as, it was like a reprieve, and then when he came out, it was like, blew it back again, and that's what really, it turned out to be a very good thing the way he did the Army. That was the best thing he ever did, you know.
One thing he was going to do was he was going to prove all these people wrong that said before that he couldn't sing. So when he, that's what he wanted to do first, and that's what he done first, was cut records.
But the first thing he had coming out was a movie. But he did cut that session, and that was the first thing he wanted to do, was cut new songs. Then he went to the movies. But music was above everything.
You had Ricky Nelson and like I said, Fabian, and these guys coming along, you know. So Elvis has got to prove to himself now that I can stay in that entertainment field with these people. And sure, he had fears, you know, I mean, a lot of times. So he had to get back into it to make sure that he could hang with them.
And what happened was Elvis got really secure right there in about the middle of 1960 when he signed a 2-picture deal with Walter Mirisch for $500,000 and a percentage of each picture and $75,000 expense money for each picture. So right then he felt secure. If they were going to offer him $1 million there for that, then he started feeling better because things were starting to happen again, and he knew his career was still on high gear, maybe a little bit different direction, but it was in high gear.
I'm thinking in terms of, I'd like to do a little more of a serious role, you know, because my ambition is to progress as an actor, which takes a long time, a lot of experience.
But for the moment, Elvis must put aside dreams of serious roles.
Well, my first picture is called GI Blues, oddly enough, and the story takes place in Germany, but it's not about my actual experiences.
GI Blues becomes one of the top-grossing films of 1960, and its soundtrack album quickly hits #1 on the charts.
I'm so pleased you came to Germany. I'm going to write a thank you letter to your draft board.
Toward the end of Germany, they did all the second unit work, and he would ride in the tanks and stuff like that because his original MOS was a gunner, so he could drive a tank. And I would have to go back and forth out to the field in a little red Volkswagen, and I was going up this trail, and this whole tree moved, and it was a tank, and it came out with this big gun tube, and I screeched to a halt, and on the loudspeaker it said, "You're captured." And I said, "Okay, I'm captured. Now what do I do?" And it was Elvis. He raised the top of the tank. I guess he said, "It's me." I said, "It's really funny, you know. That's the funniest thing I've seen today."
GI Blues pairs Elvis with Juliet Prowse, then engaged to Frank Sinatra.
Juliet and Elvis were good friends. And one day, he went into Juliet's trailer, you know, to rehearse. And all of us we sitting outside, you know, twirling our thumbs, and I said, "Well, we're going to have a little fun here." And I went up and went, Elvis, what? Here comes Frank. What? Look. Well, we had a joke. That's what we do now. And look, here comes Frank. Yeah. I said, "Oh, shit. I mean, I just did this. If I do it again, he's going to throw a bucket of water or kick me in the face or something." And this time, I just kind of eased over. You know, we could see him come through this big door, and tap, tap, tap. "Elvis, no shit, it's really Frank." He said, "Fuck you." "No, man, it's Frank. Get away from the door." Damn it. And Frank's getting closer, and I said, "Oh, boy." So I sat down. "How you doing, Frank?" And Frank knocked on the door. I said, "What? What do you say, Elvis?" He said, "Oh, Frank." Oh, man. Thank God, you know, they were rehearsing.
One day at the Beverly Wilshire, Elvis came out of the bedroom. They were back there rehearsing. And he said, "Lamar," he said, "take Juliet's car and get it filled with gas," because she said she's low on gas. And Juliet's car was a Dodge Dual 90 Ghia, an Italian car that Frank and Dean Martin, all of them had the same kind. And I was parked, and the guy was filling up with gas, and here comes this limousine. Out gets Frank, out of the back car with two other guys. And he walks up to the car, and he said, Lamar, can I ask you a question? I said, well, sure. He said, what are you doing in my car? I said, putting gas in it. I didn't know what else to say. I didn't know. I mean, that was what I was doing. And he said, where is Juliet? And I said, he said, they're back at the hotel rehearsing. And I said, yeah. You know, he came back to the hotel. I got on the phone in the lobby. I said, he's coming up. He said, don't start that crap again. I said, I am telling you, the man is getting on the elevator, and he's coming up. And Elvis went out and met him, and they met him in the hall. You know, I mean, it was, I said, this is not a joke. The man's right behind me.
You talking about sweating bullets.
Boy.
When we were making GI Blues, Elvis decided he'd been to Vegas, and he decided he wanted to go over there and take us guys. It was all our first time, so we have two cars out there. It's a Lincoln limousine type thing, and then the Cadillac white one that they later on made the gold Cadillac that RCA put out on tour and everything. But that was the two cars, and we loaded up in them, and Lamar was driving the big white Cadillac, and Elvis was in the Lincoln. And we went on down there, and we got to Barstow, which is like the halfway point. And we got out of the car, and Elvis said, Gene, bring my kit, and come on. So that kit had Elvis's medicine, it had his jewelry, he kept everything in there.
Makeup kit.
Yeah, makeup kit, everything. Gene walked up to him, well, cuz, we can't find it. And Elvis said, what do you mean you can't find it? I think we left it at the hotel. Boy, he ran and raved, said, get back in the damn cars. So everybody got back in, and boy, V-line. Now it's getting dark, see. We left there at light. Now it's around, maybe midnight, and we're headed back. So we get back to the hotel. We're all wiped out. We decided not to unpack, to just wait till the next morning, you know. So we just sat our stuff down, got in bed. 15, 20 minutes after we're in bed, the phone rings. Come on, we're going to Las Vegas. We looked at each other, we jumped back up, grabbed our stuff, and went back down. So we're going along, and Elvis is driving, and just about, I guess maybe 70 miles out of Las Vegas, he's driving, and at Lincoln, and all of a sudden, the tire blows out on the left front. That hubcap takes off, boy, and it goes across the railing and down into where there's water and grass and everything down there, snakes. Elvis is fighting fighting this handle, this front end, because the tire blew out. It didn't just go flat, it blew a hole. And he's saying, whoa, you son of a bitch. And the horn emblem vibrated right off into his lap. He's trying to get it over to the side of the road. This one driving that Cadillac back here trying to do this here, because he didn't know what's going on. And we got out, and Elvis was very upset. He said, we can't go like that. We got to get that damn hubcap and put it back on. So we crawled down and had to take our pants, our shoes off, and crawl. Said it should have been right about here, and we found it. But then when we put the spare tire on, it was still blue. You know how the white walls are when you first get them? It's blue. It's never been out of there. And I said, a damn blue tire, man. He said, this is an ugly damn thing. We're going to trade this thing in. Let's get on into Vegas.
Well, he always had a thing about a car, you know.
Because he always used to talk about how he would sit on the curb in front of Lauderdale Courts in the housing projects where he lived, and he'd see all these nice new cars go by, and he said he used to say to himself, well, one day I'm going to have a car like that, and one day I'm going to have a car like that.
That's right.
Yeah, that's right. Billy and Marty and Elvis and myself, we went out in the Rolls Royce. We left, we came back, we were going back up through Bel Air on Stone Canyon Road, and all of a sudden Elvis said, man, what a beautiful night. This is the night you want a baby blue Cadillac convertible. And everyone said, yeah, this is that kind of way. He said, Sonny, let's go to that Cadillac place over there. Now, this is in the evening. This is 7, 8 o'clock night. On the floor there at Hillcrest was this beautiful black Cadillac convertible with all the wood trimming, just beautiful. And I said, Elvis, man, you sure blue? I said, because you always talk about, you know, black or white were your colors for cars, that you got kind of tired of colors. He said, yeah, but son, baby blue. I said, well, okay. So I had to say that because when I walk up there, Elvis said, what do you think about that? I said, that's beautiful. Elvis, that's what you're talking about. It was beautiful. I said, black. It was a 63. I said, that's what I'm talking about. He said, well, it's yours. I said, no, it's not either. And I turned around, I got back over and got back in the Rolls Royce. Elvis followed me over, got up in the front seat, said, what's wrong with you? I said, Elvis, you're always giving, man. We always seem to be taking. And he said, Sonny, you guys are giving when you don't even know you're giving. He said, I know I put you through a lot, A lot of pressures, different things that happen, and this is kind of a way. And I know that you used to stand on those corners, watch these cars go by, and say, someday I'm going to have one of those. I said, yeah. He said, well, now you got yours. Let's go get mine. Next day, Elvis on the tear now, boy. 10 more Cadillac convertibles over the next couple of days.
Everybody asked him one time, said, why do you give out so many cars? He said, well, it's even easier than giving clothes because they always fit. You know?
Oh, yeah. Well, over the years, he would always blow up and fire whoever was being fired, but then later on he'd give them a car or something. That was his way of saying, I'm sorry.
He had rather you say you were sorry, you know, I mean, because most of the time he felt like he was in the right, you know.
Feeling in the right defines Elvis's portrayal of a half-breed Native American in Flaming Star.
You don't feel it like I do about Ma's death. I'm Indian. And I'll never forget the whites killed her because she was Indian, too.
In this action-driven Western, Elvis plays his few dramatic scenes with intensity and integrity. But the most dramatic incidents occur off-camera.
Elvis had to pick a horse out. We expect to be back about a half hour. Boy, in about 10 minutes, here comes Elvis galloping up on his horse, hollering, whoa, and that horse won't stop. Elvis' legs are flopping out, man. And he came up, and they had an entrance to this corral, and that horse knew to turn in there. And as he came up there, he tried to turn, and it was pavement there. And his back legs just spread eagle out almost like this here. And Elvis is holding on this way, and then all of a sudden, he's whipped back over this way, and the horse comes running through, and comes underneath the lean-to there, and Elvis ducked down, or he would have hit his head on that lean where the stalls are, and the horse just stopped right there. Elvis jumped off of him, boy, and he said, you son of a bitch, haul off, hit that horse just like that, and about a minute later, here comes Jimmy, the wrangler. He said, Miss Presley, if you pick out another horse, he said, we'll try it. And he said, hell no, I want him. He's not going to try anything else. Now I know. So that's who he did. He rode that horse.
After we wrapped on Flaming Star, I've got my arm in a sling. I'm on this big horse, and I come galloping by, you know, just I'm going to gallop, try to come as close to them as I could, you know. And Elvis was walking along there, but he had a rope. So I come around, yeah! He turned around, right around my neck, right around, and I'm going at a fast clip with this horse, and he was so shocked that he got me, he just held on. Well, hell, man, my tongue shot out, the horse's tongue shot out, but I stopped that horse, you know, but he could have done that 100 times. He'd never thrown a rope in his life.
In 1960, when we were still at the Beverly Wilshire Hotel, where we stayed the first few months before we moved out, got kicked out, really. I think we were making Flaming Star or just getting ready to, and we got into some horseplay around, and Red and Joe and myself had Elvis down. Red's up at the top of him, Joe's hanging on to the middle of him, and I've got his legs, so we really got him down. And Red started, I didn't know what he was doing, but Red was rubbing Elvis's nose, man. And Elvis was going crazy. He wanted to get free. So Red all of a sudden let go and got up and took off. And I had his leg, and I got up and took off, and Joe was just stuck there. Elvis started, boy, he worked over Joe. He grabbed a guitar and broke it over Joe's elbow. I mean, he was pounding on Joe, and we didn't know this till we found out later. We were outside in the hallway, and Elvis came over there, and he saw us in the hallway, and he threw that guitar, and just as he threw it, a guy across the hall from us opened up his door to see what the racket was, and that guitar went right by his face, man. He'd step back and jump back like that. He slammed that door, and a few minutes later, assistant manager called, said that, what's going on up there? And we said, well, nothing. There was some noise out in the hallway, but there's not any out there now. And it found out that it was us because he had seen Elvis, and so we were asked to leave. And
we were thrown out of some great hotels.
Oh, boy. That's when we found the house on Frugia Way, and we had to move there.
It was on the Bel Air golf course.
One day we spotted Dean Martin up there. We told Elvis about it and everything. Elvis came over there, and Dean was walking up. He was getting ready to hit his second shot. And Elvis had started singing that song. I'm not going to do it. I'll say the word.
Do it. You do it. But Dean Martin, you know, he's lining up his shot and just getting ready to hit and return to me. Hey, would you hold it down? And get ready to hit again. Oh, strong or whatever, you know. God damn, man. So when he came over and saw Elvis,
He said, I'm sorry, man, I didn't know it was you. Right. And then after he left, I was laughing. Then the more he thought about it, he said, that son of a bitch tell me to shut up. You know.
He was stew on it.
I never did like his damn singing anyway.
At one time, though, he said, go out and buy all the toy boats that you can find. And he said, get about a dozen BB guns and all the BBs. And while you're at it, pick up some flash bulbs. So we go to this toy store, and we bought every toy boat that you can imagine it would float. So we come back, and he gets everybody together, and we go to the pool, where we launch these boats in the pool, and flash bulbs, and like I say, some of them would move around. And everybody, all the guys was around the pool with these BB guns. I mean, they were loaded, boy. And we sat and shot until we sunk every one of them. And after that, he wanted to do it all over again, so some of us had to go down in there and recoup these, you know, with glass flying everywhere, you know. Had to get these boats back up. We taped them back up, and we started all over again.
We really enjoyed more off-the-set stuff than him just making the picture. Elvis liked the action. Boy, once they got to the fight stuff, he got into it.
We did fight scenes in every picture. Yeah. Fight scenes in every picture, and nobody ever got...
That's when he loved.
Nobody ever hit Elvis. He never hit any of us. Only one accident, right in the middle of a fight, he hit me in the stomach, and I went down. He was going to lift my head up for the next punch, and his thumb went in my eye. And I did the rest of the fight scene. I knew the routine. Went through the routine, but I never saw him after that.
When he came back from overseas, all of the fan magazines and the movie magazines did all these stories on Elvis and karate.
And we started using it. We were the first one to use it in movies so much that, you know, where it was really visible.
It was so new then, you know.
Come on. No, that's karate. Come on.
That Army time was where he got into it. He always would go to a karate institute there in Paris, where these Koreans were and everything else, and that's where he'd go work out. I went in there with him one day, the first day we were there, and boy, it's the baddest bunch of guys I ever seen in my life. I mean, those guys would chew through a back of a trailer truck.
And then all of a sudden Elvis came back, and he's all trim. That's the best he ever looked when he got out of the Army. And he was really into this stuff. We put on demonstrations for Ann Margaret and her husband in Las Vegas years later. Anybody who came by, we put on a demonstration, and the two dummies here were the ones that...
And Elvis did not care if there were no pads or no. I did it on concrete over there at the Sahara Hotel. He was showing the dealers and the guys backstage, and there's this concrete ramp, and he's having me do it on that concrete, man. I'd get scraped and bruised.
Up at the house, we had this big marble table, you know. And basically, back then, karate was new to a lot of people. And so Elvis was, the subject got on karate, and Charlie Thompson says, oh, you get a good straight fighter, and you get to throw in a good right or a roundhouse. He said, to take a karate guy out in a minute. Of course, Elvis says, okay, let's try it. And they get up, and he positions Thompson right in front of the marble table. So Thompson says, okay. Elvis says, all right, go ahead, throw a punch. Well, he throws a punch, Elvis knocks his hand away and gives him the heel of his hand, and he goes sailing across the marble table. But he gets up, he says, yeah, okay, but what if? And he says, what if what? He says, well, what if I come with a roundhouse? And Elvis says, well, go ahead. He comes with a roundhouse. Boom, across the table again. He did that 5 or 6 times. Every time he got up, he said, what if?
What if? That got to be the thing, but what if?
And finally, Elvis looked at him, he said, what if what now, Charlie? And Charlie sat down.
While making his next film, Wild in the Country, Elvis meets his leading lady, Hope Lang, in one of Hollywood's least romantic introductions ever.
Elvis had boils. He'd had him on Flaming Star, and then he had him again on Wild in the Country, and it was bad. They had to lance it right underneath there. And Hope Lane come up there to say hello before shooting. She had just arrived and everything, and she came to meet him and say hi. And he started telling her about the boils, and all of a sudden she jerked the covers. Where are they? Like this here, pulled the sheet up, and he panicked, because he had nothing on, man. So that opened it up right there. They were very tight and friendly after that.
But Elvis falls for co-star Tuesday Weld.
It needs a man to go to hell with, because that's what I want. Our hours and hours of heaven that just slides on down to hell, and we don't care how or when it ends.
She was a wild thing. I mean, she had a lot of personality, and it had a little girl quality about her or something. Everything Elvis did, some girls might be offended too. She just broke up and laughed about it. He dated her, and she was a free and easy spirit.
After 2 lackluster dramas, Elvis returns with a surefire formula featuring plenty of new songs and lots of pretty girls. Blue Hawaii is an instant success.
Do you want to kiss me again?
I don't rob cradles.
Did you ever see anything like this in a cradle?
The film features a few scenes shot at a popular local restaurant. Elvis and friends gather here later for drinks and an unexpected performance.
We finished the filming. Now, we're at the Cocoa Palms, is that it?
Yeah.
Which is a nice little Hawaiian restaurant with a little patio thing out front so they can watch the shows. Over on the other side, there's a canal there with a little bridge across.
Well, that's where they filmed the wedding thing.
Open air theater.
We're watching this show. These Hawaiian, beautiful, they're on the bridge singing, "This is a moment." And all of a sudden we hear this commotion. Here comes Sonny storming down on the other side. He gets to the bridge, and Elvis, as he's walking, Elvis just sinking down. Oh, shit. And when everybody got off of the show and started watching Sonny.
Because they thought I was going to walk between them.
Yeah, well, he didn't walk between them. They're right in the middle of this beautiful love song, and Sonny gets in and starts singing with him. Yeah, I waited for.
And I can't sing.
And he can't sing what the shit.
Well, when I left, the bar was right across the sidewalk next to the open air restaurant where they were, and I met 2 girls, and I was just sitting there drinking Mai Tais, and I didn't know how strong they were. So we left. I said I'd walk them back over there. So when I come back, the show has moved out to the bridge now, and I don't know they're in the show because people are always playing ukuleles and singing over there in Hawaii everywhere. So I just walk up and start singing with them, you know.
Norman Torog is just stomping his foot, and Elvis says, "Don't let that son of a bitch over here. You get his ass out of here."
I didn't know what I'd done. See, I wouldn't sing with anybody if I had been in my right mind.
Even so, Hawaii enchants the boy from Tupelo.
We loved Hawaii. We had some good times in Hawaii.
We did a lot of stuff in Hawaii.
It was another world. I mean, the people, the personalities, everyone, their language, aloha.
Yeah, 50,000.
He did a charity for the USS Arizona, and an interesting thing that happened there was that a newspaper columnist wrote the next day about Elvis coming over there doing the show, all the money going to he says, "It's pretty bad when we have to have someone from the mainland come over here and try to help us get this Arizona memorial built." And boy, they popped to, and they got the funds, and they got it started. Elvis was very instrumental there.
Elvis's film persona increasingly resembles his personal life. He's action-loving, constantly on the move, and always surrounded by beautiful girls, girls, girls.
Matter of fact, one night, just for the heck of it, I don't know why, but I counted. And there was 7 guys in the house and 152 women.
We had grazing rights, though.
That was the party house. I mean, the girls that came up there and the stories about Scatter.
Scatter, Elvis had a chip what he's talking about, yeah.
And this monkey was an alcoholic. At these parties, everybody, if you set your drink down, it wasn't going to be there if the monkey was in the room. He'd come over and drink it, look up the girls' dresses.
Now, we didn't train him to do this, but Scatter would lay on his back on a couch, lay halfway on and halfway off, and if a girl walked by, he'd take his little finger and crook his finger and pull her skirt up and look up under her skirt.
Those girls up there, the ones that were really, were afraid of him, he knew it. And they would go into that bathroom before they could get to it. He'd be there waiting on them to go inside with them. So they had to try to work out a thing where they could go real fast, and he would still beat them. They'd shut the door thinking he was outside, and he was inside. He got in before them, and you'd hear him open that door, screaming, come running back out. It was just a lot of crazy things like that. He tore up the telephone wire, took the phone guy 3 days. 3 days to get the phones working in the house.
But the craziest thing is that what Elvis would do, he'd wait till the room filled up. So we used to keep Scatter underneath the steps, and he'd look around and be sure everybody's having fun and all the girls are having fun, and he'd look at one or two of us and say, "All right, boys, let them out." And we'd open up that door, and that chimpanzee would come out going, "Hoo, hoo, hoo," and scare the heck out of everybody. Just run all over the place, scared the heck out of the girls. They'd start screaming because they didn't know what was happening all of a sudden.
We were finishing up Kid Galahad over at Goldwyn Studios, and we would bring Scatter over to Goldwyn Studio with us, and Scatter would go up, we could get inside the sound stage and go straight up it. And he'd be up there in the rafters somewhere, you could hear him moving around, and you just hear these noises, and they'd have to stop shooting because, I mean, they couldn't find him. It was black up there, and they had to go up on those catwalks and hunt him. So Walter Mirisch came over one day and said, "Look, is there any way that y'all can just quit bringing this chimp over here because he's causing so many problems?" So Alan and I got Scatter by each arm, and Scatter would walk with us, and we were going out, and he got loose and hit a drain pipe, grabbed hold of a drain pipe, went up to the second floor window, and jumped in the middle of Sam Goldwyn's desk. Sam Goldwyn sitting there, and this chimp just, boom, landed right in the middle of his desk. And you can imagine, I mean, this guy's pretty old, you know, and here's a chimp. And he, right after that, they banned Scatter and us too, I think, from the lot.
While off-screen antics make the movies pale in comparison, Fun Times set the tone for Elvis's 13th picture, Fun in Acapulco. For a splash of drama, Elvis plays a cliff diver who loses his nerve and fights to regain it.
There's a scene where when Elvis dives off the cliff and all these beach boys lift him up over their heads and carry him up some steps, you know, celebration. Well, we're all watching the scene, and we're watching Elvis, and he's doing this. We got through the scene, he came up and said, "There's some guy in there grabbing my..." Right. So we went to Mickey Moore, and Mickey, the assistant director, knew, you know, all these extras. They'd worked with him before. He went over to one of the guys, tapped on the shoulder, said, "I don't think we need you in this scene. You know, we want you over here." There was a strange person in there who was having a ball with Elvis.
And we're sitting at different tables in the scene. You know, so Elvis said, "Watch, see, man, who it is doing it." You couldn't. They were all underneath him doing it. Boy.
The light-hearted picture marks another success for the Presley formula. Fun in Acapulco hits number 5 at the box office, and the soundtrack album goes to the top 5 on the pop charts. But within days of its opening in November 1963, the nation's attention focuses on Dallas, Texas.
Most times, you know, we would stay up all night. We had just gone to bed. My room there was a little short hallway that led from my room to his and then into the big den. And I went in my room and automatically turned my TV on while I was getting ready to go to bed. And they announced about Kennedy getting shot. And, you know, Elvis was pro-USA, and he liked Kennedy and what have you. So I went and knocked on his door. I said, "Elvis, you need to get up." And he said, "To hell away from my door." And I said, "No," I said, President Kennedy was just assassinated, just shot and assassinated. He said, "What?" He said, "Tell him I want some coffee out in the den." So we all gathered in the den, and it was a funny thing. You know, we had that big marble table out there and a big TV, and we were all sitting there watching it. And then they finally got to the point and showed Lee Harvey Oswald, you know, later that day. And there was a coffee cup there, because we watched it all day long. And he took that coffee cup and he slammed it down on the marble table, just like that, and said, he looked around at us and he said, "Look at that beady-eyed son of a bitch." He said, "Let me tell you something," and this was weird. He said, "If anybody ever does that to me, if anybody kills me, I want you guys to get to him first before the police do. Tear his eyeballs out, his tongue, his lips, everything." But he really ranted and raved about that. And Margaret came over, and the both of them watched for, you know, almost all night long. When Jack Ruby shot Lee Harvey Oswald, and he was cheering Jack Ruby.
He collected everything on it. He actually got the
Oh, he obsessed about it.
the video, the tape before it was, you know, edited, and all kinds of notes.
Swirled him out, man.
Yeah, he liked.
Well, he was a public figure, you know, and he felt the whole situation. He said, you know.
He also liked the conspiracy stuff.
Yeah, he thought.
Well,
CIA, Kennedy thing was conspiracy.
Elvis had a lot of
from the very start.
views, but he never, you know, in public, he would never come out with it. Only
Colonel Parker
to the guys.
told him that. He told me Colonel Parker told him that. He said because no matter what side you take, you're going to offend somebody.
Exactly.
Holding to the Colonel's philosophy, the next film again follows the formula. The chemistry between Anne Margaret and Elvis is palpable, invigorating Viva Las Vegas, and spilling over into an off-camera romance.
They were, in some instances, you know, the sensual look and all that, they were a lot alike, but they took to each other. She had the greatest laugh in the world. Yeah. She used to, it was just happy times when she was there with all of us.
These guys us guys didn't sleep at night thinking about the next day we were going to see Anne Margaret on the set.
Boy, tell me.
See, the reason we loved her so much is she accepted us in a way that others didn't. There was no jealousy there. She had her time with Elvis. She had her time with Elvis and all of us. And she just accepted us being around, and you could tell she enjoyed. Because we sit around and talk about things just because we all cared about her so much. But she was just really a sweetheart, a real sweetheart.
He really wanted to be a good actor in good movies.
He had some good movies when he came out. Then they went in the toilet.
Each new film takes Elvis further from his dream of being a serious actor.
Elvis felt it was like a travelogue starring him. You know, go to these countries, Acapulco, or he would just go there and
run in Cleveland,
sing a song, hit a guy, sing a song, hit a guy. That's what
he did what they call a cookie cutter deal.
Yeah, he said, put the check there, put the script here, and
Colonel said, just use this formula, and they would sign like 3 and 4 or 5 pictures ahead, because, you know, I mean, one of the main things, Elvis went through a tremendous amount of cash, and they would get all this money up in front because the Colonel called it now money.
They made a big thing when Elizabeth Taylor got $1 million to do Cleopatra. Before that, and this is what the Colonel didn't like things getting out, and it didn't get out. Elvis had just signed a year or two earlier with MGM for $1 million a picture for 4 pictures. It was a $4 million deal for 4 pictures, and they made a big publicity thing that she got $1 million for Cleopatra. Colonel says, we don't want those figures out. No one needs to know what Elvis is making.
Elvis can command such sums because his movies, no matter how bad, invariably turn a profit. This enables producer Hal Wallace to finance other, classier, non-Elvis films.
Well, Wallace would use this to do that. I mean,
that he used the money off of one Elvis picture to finance Beckett.
Exactly right. $8 million he made. Beckett was financed by an Elvis picture. Exactly right.
Blue Hawaii.
Yeah.
$8 million.
Yeah, he made a killing off Blue Hawaii.
Blue Hawaii, it cost $1 million to make it, and it made over $8 million. And Beckett ran like $5 or $6 million to make. But back then, for a picture to make $8 million, which is 8 times what it cost, today would be $240 to $250 million because they're spending $25 million on pictures today. So it sounds very small, but in 1960, 61, 62, an $8 million gross picture that you make profit on, there just wasn't that many of them.
That made Elvis mad. He said he puts me in all of this crap and I make all of his money so he can go make pictures like Beckett for Peter O'Toole and Richard Burton. He said, why don't he spend some of that money to make a good movie with me?
On the good movies like King Creole and The Wild and Country, the 2 or 3 that were worth mentioning, we didn't fool around. He took those serious, you know. But then when all these started coming on, that's when we got wilder and wilder and wilder, and he didn't give a damn.
Got where he didn't even read the script, right, no. Didn't even read it when he got it.
And then we got into these water balloon fights. You fill up water and throw them and splatter. So I was in the catwalk way up above and on the sound stage with these water balloons, And was it Bill Reynolds making his hair? And he's got his hair all perfect, you know, and had been in there 45 minutes getting ready for the shot, and come walking out and took about 2 steps, and I dropped it. And I never thought I'd hit him, but it just was perfect. He walked right on that balloon and hit, and the hair went, you know, down. He just looked up and just like did a about face, went back in the dressing room, and they go again, you know. And I said, oh, shit.
At one time, though, dropping water balloons, and finally Elvis had, you know, he'd about had enough, so he got the hose that was used on the set. And boy, when he turned that on, it was some pressure. And he was, I don't know if Red was up there or not, but he was hitting everybody that was up there. And I mean, he was knocking your feet right out Monday. You can
firecrackers. I was sitting dozing in one of those director's chairs when I was
big baby giant.
You know, sleep. He lit one of these cherry bombs, man, and flipped it, and it hit right on my ass. And if you ever been hit with a cherry bomb, it blew a hole in my pants, blew a hole in the seat, and left a bruise that big on my rear end.
Glad it wasn't up in the front of you.
You had to do a whole lot of stuff to break the boredom and to make it a little bit more enjoyable for him.
The efforts to keep Elvis amused have the opposite effect on director John Rich.
John Rich, he didn't like the playing around that we did on every set.
Something real funny was in between scenes while they're setting up, and then it kept on after they got the set up. We just couldn't turn it off. It was that funny. Every time Elvis would look out at us, he'd start busting up, breaking up, and they were ready to do the scene.
And Rich, he wanted to bring everything on a budget and right on schedule. He didn't need all this stuff. He thought it was stupid. And he said, one more outburst, and you guys are off of here. And Elvis said, whoop, wait a minute. Hold on, let's get one damn thing straight. He said, first place, these scripts aren't worth the shit. And I got to have, you know, I'm going to have fun no matter what. And I have fun with these guys are here for a purpose. And if they go, then you can kiss my ass goodbye. And what do you want to do about that? And Rich just, you know, he couldn't believe it.
But Elvis's rebellion on the set seems tame compared to the political and cultural ferment taking place among America's youth. Psychedelia permeates the atmosphere and reaches Elvis in a most surprising way.
Charlie baked some brownies, and in them there was some marijuana. And I didn't know, because we'd never had any before that was in any brownies that we'd eaten before. So I ate 3 or 4 of those brownies and took out there, and Elvis ate a couple of them. And we're watching TV out in the living room, and all of a sudden, Charlie comes running in there. Who ate all the brownies? And Elvis said, we didn't eat all of them, damn it, Charlie. We had some. What's wrong with you? No, you don't understand, Elvis. And then he said that they had pot in them. And Elvis said, they had what? He said, pot. What's that going to do? I thought you had to smoke that stuff. And Charlie said, no, you can eat that stuff, too. We didn't smoke it or use it because, you know, you had no control.
Up until that point, we didn't.
Yeah.
Then all of a sudden, Elvis got a taste of it. And
so we tried again.
He couldn't smoke, and because Elvis couldn't inhale. And it'd take 12 bales to get him high because he could not, you know. And so finally he found I could eat it, and it was everything changed then, you know.
Another time, we're in there, we smoking, and I got paranoid. And I'm listening to Sonny and Elvis talking, and they're just talking regular conversation, you know, about whatever. And I said, son of a bitches are plotting. Oh, boy, all right. Okay, here we go. Every word they said was directed toward me, I thought. And that's when I said, this stuff is no good.
You know what I think?
But I had sense enough to say, okay, before they jump me, I'm going to go to bed. So I went to bed, and the next morning I woke up and I realized, you know.
You know what, Red, I really think, you got to remember, too, at this time, I think some of that stuff was being laced with LSD stuff, hallucinatory stuff, and I think that might have been in there, Red, because we had never felt paranoid. We felt silly and crazy.
Bake?
Yeah. Silly and crazy, Weld describes clam bake, which almost looks like a nostalgic tribute to another, more innocent era. Elvis has fun making this one, thanks in part to the understanding of his new director, the tolerant Arthur Nadell.
Arthur Nadell, the director, was one of the nicest people you'll ever want to meet.
And we had more fun on that movie because we were into the tricks. I mean, throwing water balloons, anything, like firecrackers, anything. So the cast got caught up in it. Bill Bixby and Elvis were doing a scene with this very buxom young lady at the bar who had one of these like stretch tank tops. So Elvis was supposed to come over and do a scene with him, and Bill Bixby, when Elvis got his first couple lines out, he just went away from the script and said, "Yeah, but what do you think about these?" and just put, and she just sat there in this huge bassoon, and Arthur Nadell was over just dying laughing. Elvis was, like, he never had anything like that happen, and his mouth just dropped. He couldn't think of what to say.
All the hijinks and horseplay in the world can't save the films Elvis makes toward the end of the 1960s. They continue, however, to generate a modest profit, and Elvis gets to experiment with different kinds of roles. But the unrelenting string of mediocre movies leaves him sick of the whole business, and he loses his desire to become a serious actor. After starring in 31 feature films in 13 years, Elvis finally quits in disgust and frustration.
When he really started complaining about the movies to us, he didn't complain to anybody else. It's my opinion. He used to think about stuff so darn much, Billy can tell you, too, that, things used to bother him so much and it started eating away at him. And the pressure and the stress. He said, after I fulfill my movie contracts that I have now, I don't want to do no more movies.
They were done. That was it. They were done.
Hal Wallace made a telltale statement after Elvis died in an interview that I saw, and it kind of made me angry a little, because I knew that in a way, although music was first with him, he really wanted to be a good actor in good movies. And he said, we didn't, this is the exact word, we didn't buy Elvis Presley to be another James Dean. We bought him to sing his songs.
Elvis would star in 2 more feature films, both of them documentaries on his return to the concert stage and his first love, live performance. In Elvis, That's the Way It Is, and Elvis on Tour, he would triumph in the role he was born to play, the king of rock and roll. And now, here are scenes from The King Comes Back, Volume 4 of All the King's Men.
Elvis is sitting in his customary seat on the couch, and there was some of us sitting around him. I was sitting in a chair over here, and the Beatles were like this with Elvis. Just, nobody said nothing. They were just staring at him. And he looked over at all of us, and finally he looked at him and he said, "Hey, look, if you're going to sit here and stare at me all night, I'm going to bed." He said, and this would surprise me because he never used this expression before. He said, this is not like the subjects coming to see the king, and that's really the first time I ever heard him refer to himself as that, because he didn't like when people said that. He said, "I thought we'd just sit and talk and jam a while." Well, when he said jam a while, they went nuts.
We're all taking these prescriptions a little bit, stay up. And he was so out of it, he'd almost fall off that damn. You see him, his feet flying everywhere, riding that horse.
I'll give you a perfect example of that, of the challenge. The first of '69, when he did the Memphis session, after that first night, remember coming back in the car, Sonny Red? Yeah. He was just saying how great that felt, because it was songs that he wanted to do. It was musicians that were great, and what have you. And we were driving back to the house, it's daylight, and he turned around. I was sitting in the back seat. Sonny was driving. Elvis was sitting in the front with him, and Red was back there. And he turned back and he said, "Boy, let me tell you something." He said, "I just wanted to see if I could do it one more time."
Went up there, I got to the hotel, took a cab to the hotel. As I pulled up, Jerry was standing out front of this George Washington hotel. And I didn't have time to even go to the room. He told the bellhop to do it. I paid the cab driver. He said, "Elvis, be around in the limousine in just a minute." Sure enough, here comes limousine comes around, and it's Elvis, and we jump in. And he said, "We're going to meet the president, boys." Then when he first went in there and he met the president first, the president stood up and walked to him, shake hands. He said, "You dress kind of wild, don't you, son?" Because he had this fur suit on, his glass and everything. And Elvis was very quick-witted. He said, "Mr. President, you got your show to run, and I got mine." But all of a sudden, we were known as Memphis Mafia because we're always dressed in black suits and
black sunglasses. Right. Where the Blues Brothers came from.
Right.
And we pulled up in the black limousine, and we all naturally got out before Elvis did, you know. And somebody yelled out, you know, what is that? The Mafia. And anyway, the story went on the next day in the paper and all. Elvis arrived at so-and-so with this group, the Memphis Mafia. He had this one, somebody had told him this joke about how can you tell if you got an elephant in the car? You smell the peanuts on his breath. So, boy, he really thought that was a classic. So he goes in, and there's this producer and all these people here, and he gets to talking, and he said, you know, he said, how can you tell if you got a peanut in the car? And they all listened, and he realized he messed up, so he turned around and just walked out, man, and left them hanging. You know?